Welcome to the old HOBO channel. This is episode 6, covering days 12, 13, and 14 of our 21-day trip here in the summer of 24 aboard the Erie HOBO. The Erie HOBO is a 1971 HOBO houseboat built in Wyerton, Ontario, and restored by yours truly a few years ago. We're starting today's trip from the town of Smiths Falls. In episode 5, I showed you the 26-foot lift of the combined lock, 29A they call it, in Smiths Falls. Brought us up to this pool where we stayed the night by Centennial Park. Then we went to leave the pool and there is lock 30. They call it the detached lock. We had to wait for a while till it opened. Here's the park just before it. We explored. We found a turtle's nest that it looks like it had been looted, maybe by gulls or some other varmint. But we were the first lockage through, the only boat, I believe, of the day. Immediately after the detached lock was a roadway bridge, and the lock personnel rotated that bridge for us, and we got out through that. And just a short bit later, there's a railway bridge we passed. It's, I'll call it frozen in time. It's been decommissioned for some time. This is the bascule bridge type, a counterweighted bridge. This little boat got me momentarily excited. It's a SunRay Cavalier 1100. I have one of those that I've been working on for the last 2 years. I've neglected putting any videos on. I'm sorry of the little bit of work that I've done. Life gets kind of busy, but I did do a little bit of work this summer. I'll probably get another video up at some point when I have time. Smiths Falls really became a significant town, partly because of the Rideau Canal, but also because it intersected major railways. There is a railway museum in Smiths Falls. We did not get a chance to see it. That'll be for another trip when we return. As we left Smiths Falls, we went through some more shallow, marshy, grassy areas. We met some other traffic coming the other way. Eventually, it was less than an hour later when we approached the Punamali Locks, and that is named after a place in India. There's a cut leading to it, Canal. The British soldiers who worked on the Rideau Canal had previously, some of them, been posted in India, and this area reminded them of Punamali. This is Punamali Lock, just upstream from Smiths Falls. It is really a quiet, peaceful, gorgeous place. Imagine just docking along here on the upside. It's quite nice. Okay, onward we go out into the lower Rideau, and then over to the west side to the Beveridge locks, heading to Perth today. Shortly after leaving the Beveridges, everything opens up as we head south into the lower Rideau, which is the lesser of the two main lakes, but the lower Rideau. It's pretty wide. We went for about an hour and a half on it. I think it was an hour and a half, actually, maybe more like 2 hours and a bit, finding our way to the Beveridges locks. The Beveridges were installed not as part of the Rideau project, but because the people of Perth wanted to tie in their river, the Tay River, T-A-Y, so that they could ship their goods and produce. So I think the money was independently raised, and don't quote me on it, but I think then the government did take it over and provide some funding. So that's politics. It was hard to see, and so it's a good thing to have a GPS and also just keep a hawkeye, eagle eye looking out for the channel markers that lead right to it. The first lock is the lower Beveridge lock. It's at the lower Rideau lake level, and a lot of people were tied up there. Many people don't take the trip up all the way to Perth, but here are some docks that you can use if you have the mooring pass. So the same dock personnel follow you from the lower Beveridge up quarter mile or so to let you through the upper Beveridge into the Tay River system. This is the upper Beveridge lock, and they're emptying it for us. They ran up from the lower Beveridge in a car to tend this lock, which is only like quarter of a kilometer or less than half a kilometer up. Yeah. So This is the upper Beveridge lock, and you see how turbulent it is. You see each of the four wheels up there. They pull a gate up, which opens a square opening or opens a port in the bottom of the door, allows the water to flow in from upstream. Makes a lot of turbulence. They're letting it in fairly fast. They had us park at the back of the lock. So, yeah, that's how a lock works. Now we're leaving the lock down a long, narrow cut channel, a canal, and it's going to lead us into the Tay River system. And it opens up a bit more then. It's fairly shallow, and we follow the markers. It's also time for a late lunch, and excuse the lack of decorum, but it's really hot out here. We proceed along the Tay River. There are a lot of shallow areas, and in some areas we have channel that's been dug, and you can see the stacked limestone along the sides. Let's see what the first mate's up to. A lot of dead flies out there on the carpet. Those deer flies.
Deer flies, they keep biting me. I don't know why they're not biting Andrew, but they keep biting my feet. They even got into my sandals, and I can't, because I'm going barefoot so I can react more quickly.
The river gets very windy and rather narrow as we get closer to Perth, and there are some points where you need to blow your horn and watch for other traffic. Forward and then back. Well, we got under the concrete fixed bridge, the Craig Street Bridge, no problem. The next bridge I knew we probably wouldn't get under. It's the Beckwith Street Bridge. It's a swing bridge. If we'd made prior arrangements with the lock staff, they would have sent somebody and we could have gone through it. Beyond that is yet another bridge, Drummond Street, before you get into the Tay Basin, and you can dock downtown actually, and I think in the town hall you can use their washrooms. You're right at the downtown. Beyond that navigation, there are lots of little bridges, and it gets very small, the river. So we never did go any further. We turned back, and you can see some kayak launches. There's a business there. You can rent kayaks and so on. But we went back under the Craig Street Bridge, and there's a park right there. It's the Last Duel Park, and that's where you can stay. There are showers and washrooms. This is the Perth town dock. There's a downtown dock, but this one is at the Last Duel Park. There's a story about a duel way back when. Finger docks. They say power. If you have a very long cord, there's power right there, and there's a box. But we wouldn't have a cord that long, and we don't need to plug it into anything. There are washrooms. Normally they're open till 7 p.m. Someone told me they've not found them closed even later in the evening, but there are showers in there. They're nice. It's cold water, but there's showers and toilets. There is an attendance office at the end. There's no attendant here, and we left phone numbers for 2 of the numbers given on the website. There's some descriptions there. Nobody's replied. That was at 2 o'clock. This is a Friday, so if nobody contacts us, then it's free. Otherwise, for a boat under 21 feet, I think it was $21 and something. I think that probably rounds to 25, including tax. That's I'll call a weed eater. That's for mowing the grasses. We saw evidence of some cleanup along the banks on the river. There was a sort of a barge. They were chopping wood and cutting down fallen branches, I believe. Well, not much was happening here. Young boy was fishing, needed a hand getting the hook out of the catfish's mouth so he could throw it back. We decided from there we'd go downtown. The downtown architecture is it's mostly stone and brick, and that evidently is a city ordinance enacted after a famous fire way back when. The place is a great tourist destination. It's relatively close to Ottawa. It's on the river. They have cheese, they have ice cream, they have chocolate, they have all sorts of trendy shops and so on. It's a pretty town. Well, you can only have so many restaurant meals. We really like to just prepare our food and eat our meal on the boat, and that's what we did, and had a good night. We were thankful, though, for some ice cream and the cheese that we got from Perth. We enjoyed it in the days to come. We awoke Saturday morning in Perth to calm waters and proceeded to the Beveridge's locks, aiming for a 9 a.m. arrival at the time of their opening. It's about 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, and we're headed back towards the Beveridge locks. We'll hit the upper Beveridge lock first. I called ahead, left a message. They opened officially at 9. I just let them know we'd be there maybe 9:15 or so. We're putzing along at a leisurely 5 mile an hour, just pretty much a minimum wake, and we can control the boat okay. And Janet's doing her captain's duty at the moment. And last night in Perth, there was a lot of activity, mostly fishing. There was kayaking, people with inflatable paddle boards, things like that. A couple people slept over, I noticed, in vans. One had a conversion, a stealth van, I'll call it, and the other had a vanagon. And they left the washrooms open the whole time. It was a good place to stay. It poured like crazy, though, around, 10 p.m. for some time. We got through the Tay River and then into the canal leading to the upper Beveridge lock, arriving just a little after 9 o'clock. The lock personnel were down at the lower Beveridge, and they would be up shortly. We explored a little bit. There are washrooms here. There's a nice big sink, great for refilling large water containers or doing some laundry. Note also the authentic rentals that are available. Lock tenders arrived shortly and locked us through the only boat, and then raced down to the lower Beveridge to meet us there. Okay, there's going to be a canoe rescue. Just while we were sitting here, this thing somehow spontaneously became unchained. So I gave her, I could barely reach it, couldn't hook it, so I pushed it over. These guys are going to recover it somehow. I guess this has happened before. Okay, we're leaving the Beveridges, lower Beveridges, and Janet went through the 2 Beveridge locks. Yeah, no problem. And the guys were good. We got the first lockage down. These folks here are all just docking because it's a nice place. And back out into the lower Rideau lake. There's Asher, one of the jobs. Take care of the goose leavings. Here we are back on the lower Rideau lake. We came this way from Smith Falls yesterday, and we went there through the Beveridge locks. Oops, over there. That boat is going there. And we went up to Perth, and we just came back down this morning. We're coming out, rounding around the shore here onto the lower Rideau again, and we're heading that way to Rideau Ferry. It's a Narrows, and we'll stop there and top off our gas. We don't really need it, but it's a good thing to do, I think, right now. Here we approach the fixed highway bridge at Rideau Ferry. To the right, just before the bridge, is a public dock. After that is a marina, also to the right, and that's where we were able to get fuel. Okay, 6 miles an hour, a little bit more than that, 6.2. It's 3 hours to Westport. We've got these people wakeboarding. It's really interesting to watch. The way they've got that boat set up, it makes a huge wake. We followed the passage, the channel, and threaded our way through a number of islands, many of them with homes. You could tell from the GPS which ones had power lines running to them, but it's kind of interesting. Eventually, we opened up a little more, fewer islands, but then we opened up to another part of the big Rideau, and we were approaching the side passages that led to Portland and Cornwall by Island. We worked our way through a fair bit of Saturday boat traffic. This lake is one of the prime lakes, this in the upper Rideau, prime lakes for cottages and recreation. We worked our way around to the underside, the south side of Cornwall by Island, where the anchorages were, and we minded the charts very carefully. Well, today we were just doing a drive-by of Colonel By, and if we'd wanted to stay, the dock space was pretty much full up. There are two major dock areas. There are a number of mooring balls. They were all full. There are a couple places where you could, for someone like us, shallow, where we could anchor in the weeds. There are a lot of rocks and different things. You just have to be careful. But we were just inspecting. We'd be back later the next day. As we left Colonel By Island, we picked through a number of small islands, and we finally got out more into the larger channel that runs from the northeast down to the southwest, with a long, I'll call it vertical bluff or granite ridge on the northerly shore, and we generally stayed close to that. Janet put together a little bit of lunch to eat along the way, and we cruised on towards the Narrows, which is narrowing between Big Rideau and Upper Rideau Lake, and it was a natural place to put an isthmus or a causeway across and put a lock. The lock was fairly busy with people like us going from Big Rideau up into the Upper Rideau and people coming the opposite way. There's also a blockhouse there, historic blockhouse, and you can read about that if you slow the video down. The whole purpose originally of the Rideau, remember, was military, and it was economic secondly, and it really just never did pan out or was never required for military purposes, fortunately. Okay, so we completed our rest stop. We talked to a few of the boaters that were tied up there. They've been just tied up for a couple nights for a place to stay, and enjoyed the sunshine. Then we went into the lock. The average lift of this lock is only 2.6 feet, and we were raised to the level of the Upper Rideau. The distance from the Narrows lock to Westport was only 6 miles or 10 kilometers. The Westport Marina is municipally owned and operated. It's nice. It's close to downtown as well. It has two entrances. We initially went to the north entrance, and it was a little bit windy, but we docked temporarily. We found out where we could stay for the night, and we ended up going out around quite far to avoid some shallows, but come around to the south entrance. And we had a very good spot right next to the little bridge that linked us to the shore. July 7th, day 14 of our trip. We went to church. We came back, had a little nibble, and set out on our way a little after noon. We didn't have very far today. We're going to Colonel By Island. We approached the Narrows lock, and the bridge opened for us, swing bridge, and we went through a second time, only the opposite way, heading down to Big Rideau. Just after passing through the Narrows, a boat started to honk at us and wave, and we realized, hey, that's somebody we know. So onward to Portland. We passed different islands this time as we headed deeper into the bay to Portland. Okay, here we are in Portland. We're parked here. That's the day dock right there. And folks are here. Kids are jumping off houseboats. The galley looks like an eatery. You got Big Rideau Lake boat rentals. So we're going to go into town, and yeah, this is Portland. Yeah, one major marina there, and another one which I think does more repairs and storage just a little farther down. Well, we had our ice cream, and we bought some groceries and hopped in the boat and had set off for Colonel By Island. This satellite photo of Colonel By Island appears to have been taken in the fall, and there is one dock missing, the dock that we stayed at. It's a floating dock, and it was probably taken up in the fall. On the previous day, Saturday, there was no room at any of the docks, this one or the one around the corner, which you could see on the previous map, and the mooring balls were full. This time was Sunday afternoon, mid-afternoon. Things had cleared out quite a bit, and there was room at this particular dock for us. We had lots of help to get the boat in position. I wasn't paying attention to the wind direction. I'd forgotten which way it was and had to make a second approach, but they were very helpful and gracious. The boat that's just leaving, they lent us a
lent Janet a pool noodle, and we went for swimming off the end of the dock. There is a ladder there. It's really good. It's over 6 feet over my head. These people are from Ottawa, but they spend their summer on the lake, and they keep their boat over there in ports. I'm blanking out. Anyhow, in the town we were just in. This doggie's been doing this for the last 15-20 minutes. He's just looking for fish. I don't know if he's ever seen one, but he is very intent, walking back and forth across 30 or 40 feet of this beach.
After our swim, we went onto the island to explore the structures there, which are listed on the National Historic Register. And there is a history here of, I guess, a lot of entertainment. A lot of captains of industry and politicians have visited here at various times. It's in disrepair right now. I don't know that there would be any plans to restore it, but it's administered by Parks Canada. There are other areas of the island to explore by boat and by on foot, but we just stuck to the this area here. There are even tennis courts.
We have the old structure here. Used to be some sort of hunt club, and I'll put in the notes there. I know that the last person who owned it, they built it in the 50s, and a number of dignitaries and famous people have been here, I guess. Maybe even mob figures is what I was told. But it is in disrepair, and now Parks Canada owns it, and I don't think it's worth fixing, or that it will be fixed.
By supper time, the two cruisers or trawlers that were at our dock, they had cleared out. We had the dock to ourselves for the night. There was a boat rental out on one of the mooring balls. They came in on occasion to walk their dog. That was about it. Around the corner, there were still a number of boats on mooring balls and on the finger docks there.
Okay, you can watch that dock gallop a little bit. This is sort of calm right now, but every once in a while the wind picks up a bit more, and then a wake comes in from some boat that passed 5 or 10 minutes ago, and this dock really gets to rock and roll. What I noticed was I had these tied up fairly tight and not thinking, but we were having a lot of height difference between the two. It was yanking up on that, and I noticed that the cleat was moving. I was able to access it from inside, and I've got an aluminum backing plate there. Nothing had crushed the aluminum. It just, I think it crushed the butyl tape that I had underneath the cleat, and it was loose. So I snugged up the nuts. One in particular was loose. Then the folks that were here in a trawler, I saw they were saying, "Hey, I really like my snubbers." I go, "Wait a second, I've got 2 unused snubbers." And this is just the case here. We want to reduce the shock. We don't want that rope to suddenly go bang, bang, bang. So what we do is apply it like so. There's extra length. You can appreciate there, extra unused length. And when this pulls, I mean, it'll squeeze the rubber. The rubber will also stretch and elongate. That provides shock absorption. So you're not directly transmitting instant force from here to here. It's like a rubber band. So we've got that there. You can also have a little of my homemade anti-chafe protection there too for the rope, and the same thing up here. This is actually, I should have bought another one of these. This is for a hypochondriac who doesn't like to touch shopping cart handles or wipe them down. You just put this Velcro thing over your shopping cart handle. I found that in the dollar store or something like that. So I thought, hey, that's great for anti-chafe, and it just protects the edge there. Actually, it's some of the edge channel stuff is working and coming off, and that's another project someday for this boat. I'd like to find some heavier gunnel protection. So that's it here on Cornwall Island. And all the traffic that was here on the dock is cleared off. We've got a boat anchored. Those guys have been anchored since we saw them yesterday when we were here. And we've got over another dock over there. There are a few folks still hanging out for the night.
That's the end of day 14. The last thing I did before bed was a little bit of magnet fishing. The only thing I found was a screwdriver bit and a piece of wire or two. There is still 1 week's worth of material, 1 week's worth of travel that will be put into episodes, and I'll get to work on that. And subscribe if you'd like to get that, or check back into the channel and hear about the rest of the trip through to Kingston and Cornwall.